If you're not designing a bedroom like it's ready for a royal sleepover, are you even living in a French chateau?
And if you don't include restoration of priceless artwork in your renovation budget, you must not be working on Castle Impossible.
Hi there, I'm Shari, and this is my BFF Rhonda.
And welcome to Designing Bitches. This podcast is for women
and brave men
who eat, sleep, and breathe interior design and recognize their addiction to HGTV.
Whether you're rearranging your living room for the 12th time or here to justify another home goods spree, you're in the right place.
Let's talk design, disasters, and all the beautiful chaos in between.
Welcome back, besties. This week we're recapping the season finale of Castle Impossible in an episode called Dreamland, the Bedroom Fit for a King, where Daphne and Ian go full Versailles.
That's right. They tackle one of the upstairs bedrooms and decide it's time to honor the royal history of their chateau. Wall drapings, dramatic moldings, even a restored fireplace that comes with its own artwork worth more than our annual salary.
We're talking 16th century French master painter levels of fancy. And this time it's not about Grandpa. It's about the grandeur of the castle itself, at least initially.
So pour your best Bordeaux or whatever's closest in the fridge, because this one's got legacy, luxury, and layers of fabric on the walls. Let's get to it.
When they start this episode, they recap their previous 7 episodes and how in those episodes it's been about helping to honor the legacy of Daphne's grandfather.
Yes.
But for this episode, Ian's talking and he specifically says, we really want to honor the legacy of the chateau because this chateau is unique in that it actually hosted kings and queens of France.
Yes, specifically Catherine de Medici is mentioned. And interestingly enough, I had just listened to a podcast, shout out to The Rest is History, on the de Medicis. So I felt very connected with this episode.
Oh, how interesting. Now, Daphne might have a chateau that was frequented by royals, and I am so not a monarchist, but I'm not sure if I ever told you that I'm actually descended from royalty.
No, but I can see where you'd think that.
My grandparents on my mom's side were really into doing genealogy.
Okay.
Before it became cool with tools like Ancestry.com. And I'm related to Mary Queen of Scots, which means I'm allowed to wear the Stuart tartan.
Oh, God.
And interestingly enough, you're a lady of Scotland, Lady Rhonda.
I am. I have proof. I have a certificate.
Because I gifted you a parcel of land in Scotland, which allows you to use the title.
Someday I intend to visit it.
Now, to balance all of that, I'm also related to Benedict Arnold and the woman who built the Winchester Mystery House, for what it's worth.
For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a house built by a crazy woman.
Yes. It has stairs that go to nowhere. It's a really nice place to see in Northern California.
Yes, yes.
And I don't have all the genealogy as far back on my dad's side of the family, but pretty sure I'm probably related to a Queen of Spain, somewhere on that side of the family.
Yeah, someone who worked in the fields for the Queen of Spain.
Not that I have delusions of grandeur, but... But yes, goodness. I'm so not a monarchist, Rhonda.
Although you are obsessed with the British royal family, by the way.
I was. I went through a period of obsession with the British royal family, and they did me dirty, and now it's block, 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 block. I don't see any of it in my algorithm anymore. Thank goodness.
Got it.
Now, the room they pick...
No, I was just going to say, so a second floor bedroom renovation.
Yes. And the room they pick has such opulent bones, those arched windows,
beautiful.
The original, I'm assuming, herringbone floors,
gorgeous.
And a painted ceiling that whispers of old world grandeur.
Yes, I thought it was so interesting how that ceiling matched the ceiling of the other castle, the other chateau that they went to visit. Like that must have been a thing, right?
I guess because
what all what all the rich people were doing.
When Ian is talking about the fireplace, and we'll talk about the fireplace in a little bit.
So beautiful, yeah.
And how it's this stately stonework fireplace, but he mentions that there are 3 historical fireplaces in the chateau, and they're all very similar, very huge, like impressive size, and they have artwork painted above them, and they
talk about a focal point.
What's that?
A focal point. I said, talk about a focal point.
I know, and nobody's putting a TV above that. Thank God for the artwork.
No.
But they all have that same type of ceiling. So it must have been something about, late 16th century, early 17th century, that was a detail you would use in very fancy spaces.
Clearly. And they had mentioned that in the castle that they visited, that this room would show how rich you were, right? Instead of wearing Gucci, you would decorate your house with gold and super busy floors and fabrics and tapestries and paintings.
Now, I'm always struck when they go into a new room to do a project. The first thing that needs to happen is it has to be cleaned. And you go in the room and it looks pretty dusty. And I always think, it would sort of drive me crazy to know I have all these rooms in my house that have spider webs and dust. But also there's no way two people could maintain all of those buildings and clean them all the time.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Like my first project would be cleaning it, right? Everything.
Yeah.
But I think you'd get done and then have to start over again, right? You'd never get through it.
That's actually what they say about the moat. The minute they get done cleaning it in one cycle, it's actually time to start over. Now, Daphne convinces Ian that if they make the room look regal, they might be able to rent it out, so it will pay for itself. This will be an investment. And they budget $15,000 for the project. They did go over their budget, but that's a surprise I'll leave till later.
Got it. I thought it was interesting. She said we need revenue streams that are sustainable.
Yeah.
And I thought, like an HGTV show. Right? But I didn't know there was a market for renting out a room in your chateau for photo shoots, movies, historic dramas, but it does make sense.
We did talk about that in our 4th episode where we covered the Castle Impossible season premiere. So I don't know how much of a revenue stream that is for them, but I agree with you. There's got to be a market for that.
Yes, I would like to volunteer an idea, Daphne, if you're listening. Those dungeons would be a huge hit with American tourists who want to do a haunted tour, a haunted night tour. I think you have something there. I will tell you, when I was in Venice with my niece a couple years ago, we did do a haunted night tour through St. Mark's Square. I loved it. It was fantastic.
Oh.
I don't believe in ghosts or any of that stuff, but just the stories and the history of it, I loved it. So anyway, she could certainly turn that dungeon into some sort of, haunted mansion tour.
Oh my God, it would be
and Americans
so great.
would love it. The French would be like, what are you guys doing? But the Americans would be like, sign
I feel
me
like
up.
the French say that a lot about Americans.
Probably. She speaks French perfectly, so maybe she's considered one of them.
Good.
So maybe she's considered one of them.
And when they go in the room, the walls are covered in this stained and dirty fabric.
Weird, huh?
And they're,
who put that
I guess
up?
it was at the time people used fabric to cover walls. Maybe they hadn't invented the glue that was going to make it wallpaper. I don't know.
Beige? Like these beige walls? I don't understand. Who did that?
Well, she was hoping they could take it down and that whatever was underneath might give her some inspiration.
Me too.
For how
I was hoping
to
there was paintings,
design the room, but it turns out they're just blank walls. So she needs to find inspiration from somewhere else. And they end up touring another chateau to help get the inspiration for their project. And this chateau, when they get there and Daphne says, I think chateau envy might be a thing.
I don't know. At
because
a certain
the chateau
point,
they visit has like 564 rooms.
Crazy. 100 bedrooms.
Their chateau looks like the little baby brother.
It does. But I would think you would walk into that and go, oh my God. Like, I wouldn't be envious. I'd be like, this is impossible. Like, nobody, I guess that's why it's called Castle Impossible, but nobody could maintain this. Nobody could restore this. It's just so much, so big, right?
And it looks like that other chateau is being treated almost like a museum.
Yeah, I looked it up. This chateau goes back to the Viking invasion in 854. It was a fortress at that point. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, they were right. He was right about it being added on to over the centuries. But by the time of the French Revolution, it had sat neglected for about 100 years. And it got looted during the Revolution. Fortunately, somebody who loved it said this is an important part of French history and took on the renovation. And now, yes, it is a museum.
And then on the tour, they learned that the artist who did the artwork on the stone above their fireplace, they knew that it was Quentin Valin. I'm totally murdering that name. I'm sorry to all you people out there who speak French.
Or art experts.
Yes, but the tour guide explains that this artist is one of the most important artists in France
They both look
in
blank.
this context at the end of the 16th century.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think, I wonder if it's the same artist did the other two historical fireplace artworks, and could they
presume.
actually sell one to make a
Oh,
bunch
my
of
God.
money? So I looked up auctions.
Yeah, you and my husband are on the same page. He said the same thing. Sell one of those and fund the rest of your renovation.
So I looked it up, and I can't find any information on how much his last piece of artwork sold, but it sold at auction in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And the internet calls him a French old master.
Okay.
But they don't give how much it sold for. And I thought, well, 2024, maybe Daphne and Ian did sell a piece of his work.
Yeah, there used to be 4.
Now they bring in art restoration experts, which they end up not using because
Well,
it's
they
going to
just
take
can't
3
afford it,
months
yeah.
and $8,000. Not sure if that's dollars or francs or euros. And they decide to hold off for now. But the idea that it's like a spit shine for the artwork.
Yeah.
They work in these small squares, and people's spit can be different, and some is better to do restoration.
Yes.
Who knew that Mom was right when she spit on her hand to, clean
Yes.
something up?
Wipe your face off, yeah.
And I felt like it was one of those things I really didn't need to know.
I don't want to know. This is covered in saliva.
I really didn't need to know this. I did get a big laugh about them trying to do the online auction for a bed.
That's how I would look doing it.
And their
yes.
budget is like 400 to 700 euros.
Yes. So naive.
And I
So
feel like
naive,
they can't even click a button before the first one is sold for 7,000 euros.
I thought for sure when he said, oops, I accidentally hit 4,000. And sold.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then they try another bed and they up their budget to 1,500 euros,
Yes,
but it still is not, still is not going to cut it. And they decide they need a different strategy.
Yes, clearly.
I will tell you, when they start working on the fireplace, first of all, I don't know that I would take on cleaning out my fireplace.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful fireplace.
But they go to clean it, which is oof. And I'm always impressed by the projects that Daphne and Ian, they're willing to take on.
So high energy compared to me.
Well, that, and that they're like, oh yeah, we can do this. I mean, it's a, however many ton fireplace, however, how old it is, but no, we can do this. We can clean this out, and we're not afraid of the spiders. Ew.
I know. I'm surprised there wasn't a bat.
And when they go to repair the part of the fireplace that's cracked, one being so nervous, we take this out, is it all going to come down and crush Daphne?
Crash, yes, crashing down, yes.
But secondly, their confidence with actually repairing it. And Daphne talks about her dad was a stone artist and she's not afraid to do this stuff. And I just think there's something about it that kind of you think, here are things that happened early on for them that made them the perfect people to be in a position.
Yeah, serendipity to inherit a
Yeah.
chateau that needs renovation. Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. And every time they take on a project that I just think, I am not dealing with walls that are 20 feet high. I'm hiring someone to do that. And they're like, here they are. And they do it.
They have a lot more energy and they're a lot younger than us. So I think there's something to that as well.
And in keeping with the time frame when royals actually walk to the halls, they decide to use fabric on the walls.
Yes.
And they talk about they're going to use the French cleat system. And I'm like, wow, I have a French cleat in my house. So I know exactly what this is and what it does. It's how I hang my hallway mirror. And the fabric they choose is very sumptuous with a soft sheen and an old world pattern that whispers kind of
Robin's
luxury.
Egg blue. Yes, blue. Pretty.
Feels
beautiful.
really consistent with the colors Daphne and Ian have used elsewhere. And
Correct,
you're right.
yes.
Paired with the robin's egg blue walls, the effect is it's ethereal, stepping into a storybook almost.
I agree.
They're worried about matching the pattern perfectly for their fabric. I was so impressed with that.
I wrote that in my notes. I am impressed with the ability to get the fabric on those large frames straight, much less matching. Right?
Yes.
It's so hard. I've tried to do that with small projects.
I will never complain about wallpapering again.
Yes.
Luckily, the fabric had a small repeat, but you're right. Getting it straight, making sure those frames were actually square.
Yeah.
Getting it level on the French cleat, like it is all
At that size.
super impressive.
Yeah.
I won't be complaining for a while as I think about what they went through to try to do this.
No kidding.
And then drama alert. They get a visit from wild boars.
Oh, loud noises scare them away, so let's bang on a pan.
You know what? Don't laugh, but it made me think about when I take Blue out at night in my backyard, by the way, that's fenced. But coyotes, unlike boars, coyotes can easily scale a 6-foot fence.
Correct.
When I take her out, I take a can filled with coins to make noise.
Oh, for crying out loud.
And they call it hazing for coyotes. You really want them to be afraid of people and noise. And I had like a little nature walking path that goes like all along the back, like in a little arroyo.
A little coyote highway, so to speak.
When she's banging on the frying pan, it reminds me of me with my can of coins. And I thought, I can totally relate. They don't
your
like
neighbors
noise.
are like, what's that noise? Like every night I hear this noise. What is that noise?
They could just come over and ask me. They could just come over. Just for you besties to know, I have an 8-pound dog. If a coyote grabs her, like it's lights out for Blue. So I do not let her go out by herself in my backyard.
Not without a can of coins. I did look up. How do you deal with boars?
Oh my God, your algorithm is going to be so funny now.
I know. So I will tell you about that in a minute. But the internet did say, build a fence. So
who would think?
He built that little fence. I was laughing at him. Like, really? That's not going to keep them up. But that's
I
exactly
thought it was
what
a great use of pallets. You know, I have pallets that I end up with that I have to figure out how to get rid of them. And they're very big.
It does seem like you should do something with them. But anyway, it did also mention electrifying that fence is even better.
Oh.
So, Ian, get out there with it. You're going to electrocute yourself, I'm sure. But so, yes, my algorithm this morning, the first video on my feed when, I'm laying in bed kind of trying to wake up.
Yeah.
Is somebody hunting a boar. Like this boar is running across a prairie field. And I'm like, oh, look at that. And then boom. Why am I getting this? Like, this is so violent. What? Oh,
your algorithm is messed up for quite a while.
I know.
Quite a while.
I do not want to see these type videos. But it turns out the French do hunt them. And interestingly, the right to hunt is linked with property ownership. And it's probably the one thing in France you don't need a permit for.
Back to Castle Impossible. Now, to save money, because apparently this fabric is expensive.
Yes.
On the largest wall in the room, they decide to layer in lavish molding as an accent wall. And clearly Daphne and Ian haven't heard that accent walls are on the downswing in design. That's the first thing that went through my head. Like, ooh.
That's funny. Along with the open
accent
floor plan.
walls aren't a thing anymore, guys.
It's true. It's true. I feel like that's another one of those open floor plan things. Like, okay, I like my accent walls, so F off. I'm keeping it.
I'm trying to think of the really well-known designer who just came and poo-pooed all over accent walls. So it's been...
Oh, I've seen it on more than one feed. Absolutely.
I was going to say, at least for me, that's part of my algorithm now is about accent walls.
But I like them.
I really want to say something snarky about the fact that the first bed didn't fit through the doorway and measuring first, but
like that's never happened to you.
It's exactly what I would do. So Ian and Daphne, like, no notes. I have no notes for that. It is funny when Ian comments that you'd never find anything like this in America. Like, a bed fit for a king or queen. And I'm like, well, of course not. America.
Yes.
America has no kings.
Actually kicked ours out.
America needs no king. To paraphrase from Ian's favorite book, Lord of the Rings.
So yeah, when it didn't fit, I was like, take it apart, or I would cut 2 centimeters. I'd be like, get the saw, get the saw. This thing's getting in there, or take the door frame off, or whatever. I would have gotten that.
The whole house collapses because you take across a supporting beam to get your bed in the room.
As God is my witness.
That is how most of my projects go. They start out simple, and then I do something that seems like it's the right thing, and it's not. So it becomes a catastrophe.
But all I can imagine is after carrying that upstairs, she sends it back. Like,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
you know, those movers were hating her.
Yeah, but also with all those cameras around, like, what are they going to do?
I hope she tipped well. That's all I can say. I would feel terrible saying, yeah, by the way,
Well,
take this
tipping
back.
isn't a thing in other countries.
Well, I think she owed them something.
I don't know. I'd love to know if they would tip for that or not. Everything that I read says that would not be expected in France.
Yeah.
I also was really impressed with their mental bounce back when the first bed doesn't fit.
Mm-hmm.
If what I had envisioned does not
Yeah.
work out, I would be pouting and plotting for months.
Frozen in place.
Yes. And researching and getting my handyman over, like, let's just make the whole doorway bigger. Let's put
That's
an
where I
arch
would
in there
be.
while we're at it. I don't know what I would do, but I feel like my mental bounce back is not as quickly as they're just like, oh, well, there's another bed that will fit. And, oh, by the way, it's less expensive. So
Yes.
as it turned out, this is a good thing. And I'm just like, I would be like, ah.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. I would have a hard time. But she made it sound like the company that they bought that bed from had another, like it was pretty easy switch out. So that would make a difference too. If it was, I have to start over searching, yeah, I'm with you. I'd be a little bit like, let's get back to this later, next spring.
Yeah.
But anyway, the scale in that room, and I think this is maybe my problem with the solar, right?
Mm-hmm.
The scale, the room is just so big in that bed, which would be gigantic anywhere else. It does look tiny, right? Like I was like, is that a double bed? But I think it's probably a king or a queen.
Yeah. I feel like in this room, the scale did not throw me off as much as it did in the solar.
But even that little like makeup table that they put in there, it's just that looks so tiny, but I'm sure it's not. It's just the scale of that room would just be so hard to furnish, you know?
So are we talking about the reveal? And for the reveal, we get introduced to Francis, who we've
Grandpa's
never
friend.
heard about before, but he was the chateau's caretaker.
Yes.
And it's a great tie-in to the history of the chateau and Daphne's family. Mm-hmm. Which I also thought, like, this is the perfect bookend for how Ian introduces the project for this episode.
Agree, yes.
He starts by going through all of the other episodes and how they were more about Daphne's grandfather, but this one is going to be more about the history of the chateau. But in the end, we bring it back to Daphne's grandfather with the connection with Francis.
I feel like there's a theme in this show that every episode is, let's get Daphne to cry about Grandpa.
I was going to say, in my notes, literally the next sentence is, it's not an episode unless Daphne cries at
Unless
some point.
Daphne cries about Grandpa. Anyway, yeah, I did like the Francis tie-in. I thought that was nice.
And this episode really connects back to the why for Daphne and Ian. You know, in podcasting, we talk a lot about the why.
Yes.
And I feel like for them, their connection to the why is so big
Yes.
that it's what keeps them going, sweeping spiders out of a chimney.
Yes.
And then they celebrate with a king's cake. And first of all, I'm surprised because I'm like, that's a New Orleans thing.
Me too. Same thing. Same thing.
And then ding, 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 I think, well, let's see. Who controlled New Orleans and is
Or
responsible
maybe
for
they
a
had
lot
it
of
first. I don't
its
know.
culture? Oh my God, it's France.
Yes.
Anyway, so it makes perfect sense that New Orleans has king's cake and that they really did come from an old French tradition. It's slightly different in New Orleans, so it's bigger and louder, like kind of everything is in America. But I love that they celebrate with a king's cake. It's made, I looked it up, it's made with almonds. So I wouldn't like it.
Oh, I love
But I like the
pastry.
idea of it. And I'm really like pretty much a celebrated cake maker here in the area where I live. So I could probably make it.
How about that last cake? What color was that icing?
You
Shari?
just have to ask
What was that icing called?
my son and his girlfriend. That is definitely not the last cake. I didn't say I was celebrated because they were good.
Oh, okay. Because you'll do it. That's why.
Just because I'll do it. But the
You'll
last
do
cake
it.
was for my son's birthday, BTW.
Okay.
So I feel like I could make a version of a king's cake that doesn't have almond in it. And I would call it like a queen's cake or a princess cake.
The New Orleans king's cake is kind of the New Orleans version is kind of like a doughy braided ring. More like a bread. Yeah. So
I've actually had one.
Okay.
And they tend to be more colorful.
Definitely
And of
more
course,
sugar.
it's the baby, so they put in a different, like in the French version, it's more of a little like toy that they stick in there, like a
little charm. Mm-hmm.
But in the New Orleans version, it's a little bit more like religious based, like their little Jesus cakes.
Little baby
Jesus.
Little baby Jesus, yeah. Also in the French version, you get to be king for the day. And in the New Orleans version, you've got to pay for the next party.
I guess I'm going to do a queen's cake and I'll be queen for the day. Whoever, in my tradition, whoever gets the little trinket, that just means I get to be queen for the day.
How would this be different than any other day in your life?
Let me think about that. And while I'm thinking about that, let's go on to the next topic, which in my notes, it is amazing watching this season. I've also been watching some of the YouTube episodes.
Yes.
And how hard they work. And how inspiring that is. They just dig in and get it done.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of people like us who watch it and have our opinions. And if you want to hear about the opinions, just check out Reddit. I also think that these two seem to enjoy the spotlight.
Yes.
And they're good at it.
Yeah, it's a little awkward, right? You could tell it's not their, chosen profession. They weren't theater majors. They're not part of that acting community. But I think there's a genuine joy in sharing what they're doing.
Yeah, and their YouTube predates the HGTV show by about 2 years. So they've had some time to practice.
Got it. Okay.
Which leads into kind of our final topic. Do we think there's going to be a season 2 of Castle Impossible?
I'm going to say yes because it is so popular, although that doesn't seem to be the HGTV decision making, because some of these shows that are getting canceled I'm really perplexed about. But I suspect yes.
What I like, the algorithm fools me into thinking everybody likes it.
Oh, got it.
So it may be, I don't know. I haven't looked at the ratings lately. I'm sincerely hoping there's a season 2.
Yeah, I do too. I really want to see it. I want to see it finished, and that's probably going to be the rest of their lives.
What I've read is it's a little harder to do the filming in Europe. Maybe just because HGTV is American based, or I don't know. And I've read that, but I don't know if it's true. But I know that Daphne and Ian made a post on Instagram encouraging people to watch the finale because they said that the numbers could help them get another season.
Good. Okay.
And they're really looking to get the money to help them continue maintaining and refinishing that chateau.
Yeah, I loved it. That would be my finale. I told you I was super excited when it got started because I was such a fan of Escape the Chateau.
Which do you like better if you compared them?
Initially, I'm going to say Escape to the Chateau because, if I could have lunch with anybody in the world, I would have it with the Strawbridges. But I know that sounds strange, but I just like them so much. And I just have a million questions about that whole renovation. And I saw it a little bit from start to finish, right? The part that they let you see. This is just an early taste.
I think I'm more connected to Castle Impossible because I think Ian and Daphne are so connected to this being something in her family and her family's legacy, and that is the biggest differentiator between what they're doing and the Strawbridges.
So yeah, there's something to their sweet naivete that I really enjoy, and it's a beautiful chateau. It's a beautiful building, and I hope for their success. I really do wish them success.
And that wraps up the season finale of Castle Impossible. From ceiling moldings fit for a king to a bed that literally couldn't fit through the door. Daphne
a very
and Ian,
heavy bed.
Yes, delivered royal realness and then some.
They gave us drama, they gave us drapery, and a drive-by from some wild boars, because no renovation is complete without an unexpected animal cameo.
I loved how they tied it all back to the legacy of the chateau. The king's cake at the end. Chef's, wait no, sitting ovation from our vintage office chairs for that sweet full circle moment.
Those thrones are never comfortable. You know that, right?
No. Mm-mm.
But can we talk about the bed budget? You start at 400 euros and end up fighting off antique collectors with 7,000 euro bids. Yeah, I won't complain about the prices at Restoration Hardware anymore.
Nope. And then we have to give a royal nod to Francis, the caretaker. Honestly, the perfect character to end the season with. That reveal had heart, history, and just the right amount of HGTV sparkle.
Agree. For this week's special posting on Instagram and Facebook, we're dropping side-by-sides of the rooms before and after the fabric walls because Wow, those before shots look like an abandoned set of The Haunting of Versailles. I'd like to give a bestie shout out to our new BFF, Gay, who lives in Las Vegas. Gay had some serious surgery recently, and her son recommended our pod to her while she recovered. And even though she's really a Food Network lover, she said it was like hanging out with girlfriends. So good luck with the recovery, Gay, and thanks for listening.
Oh, that's so sweet. Now, as always, we've got some apologies to make. I'm sorry to Team Accent Walls Are Timeless, people who think wild boars are cute, and anyone who ever thought buying furniture online was low stress. If you're vibing with us and your brain is basically made of HGTV at this point, you need to catch up on all of our episodes at designybitches.com. We're literally everywhere you listen to podcasts, so hit that follow, like, star, or whatever button your app throws at you. We're not picky, we're just needy. Well, until next time, besties, bye!
Bye. See you soon.